Good morning. Today we're going to look at Exodus 27 and 28. I'm on a little bit early. I need to be in Carrington by a little before 9. The first thing I want to do today is try to show you this picture that's in my Bible. It's a picture of the tabernacle. I don't know how well you can see it somewhat there, but the the tented tabernacle in the middle of that large enclosure, and then out in the front of that is the altar of burnt offerings, and uh, as I read all of those descriptors as to how they're supposed to build it, I mean I can't really get that picture in my head. So it's kind of nice to have this illustration in my Bible that shows that to some extent. The what it is that God wants them to build, and then not only to build it, but have it so that they can move it from one place to another and set it up each time. Out in the, and then there's a little picture there, a smaller picture on the bottom that showed the inside of that tented area in the middle of how the most holy place there was there, and the table of showbread and different things that have been talked about in as God has been instructing Moses how to build this tabernacle, this area of worship. And one of the deals out in there was this altar of burnt offerings outside, and this altar was to be a square, 5 cubits, which would be about a cubit is roughly 18 inches, so about 7.5 feet square and 4.5 feet high. This altar of burnt offerings that and it says you shall make horns on its four corners, and its horns shall be of one piece with it, so not to be separate but to be molded in there, to be all to make it look like it's one large piece that way. And you make plans to receive its ashes with its shovels and basins and forks and fire pans, all made of bronze, and so very specific. So you got this altar and an area for the ashes to accumulate and then to be removed, and God's got it all worked out. And it's just, I mean, when I think about that, how God has this all worked out, how He tells the Israelites, tells Moses how to build a tabernacle, how to build this altar. He's got this planned out, and it's the same thing. God worked out our salvation in Jesus Christ. He's taken care of all of the details, and this God who created everything pays attention to the small details, and and these descriptions of how God tells Moses to do that. It's very detailed. Take this cloth, blue and red and purple, and use goat's and make it this way. And this is how God wants it to be. And then starting in verse 9 of chapter 27, it's the court of the tabernacle. From the south there shall be hangings made of fine woven, and on the north there shall be, and on the, very specific as to lengths and widths, and that was in that picture. You could see, the length and then the width of that, and when it tells in there, that to make this length 30 and this one 15 or whatever the dimensions were, and so each time they set it up, it would be the same. Along the width of the courts, there shall be hangings of 50 cubits with their 10 pillars, and he talks about the north side and the south side and the east and the west, and so it isn't to be set up a different direction each time, but each time it's set up, the north wall is this long and the south wall, so sometimes you don't set it up facing north and south, and sometimes east and west, but you set it up the same direction each time. And then in verse 20 it starts with the care of the lampstand. And there were very specific instructions as to how to build a lampstand, and it wasn't just one flame, it was 3 on each side, and so there's 6 of them. And the people are to bring pure oil, pressed olives for the light, which if you've got impurities in your oil, you get a lot more waste. It doesn't burn as well. And so it's to bring pure oil, and to have enough so that Aaron and his sons will tend it from evening till morning, so that just it burns all night long. And made me think of Jesus' parable of the 10 bridesmaids, having oil for the lamps, and not being prepared with enough oil. But God tells them, have this pure olive oil and have enough, because you got to keep this burning from night until morning. And every day he says it shall be a statute forever. This is to go on completely, eternally. And in many churches, I don't know if I should say most or all, but many churches have this eternal candle. And you can buy the candle that goes inside, and that candle will burn. I don't remember if they're rated at 7 days or 14 days, but the candle, if you let it just burn, will burn. They know how long it's going to burn. And some churches have gone to putting a little electric light in their eternal candle. But it's a reminder there for us of God's eternal light and the love of God in our hearts. And so the care of the lampstand is just a reminder of God's light coming to us in so many ways. Chapter 28 deals with the garments for the priesthood. And so God says, now take Aaron your brother and his sons with him from among the children, that he may minister to me as a priest. So Aaron and Aaron's sons, and here we have Nadab, Abihu, Eleazar, and Ithamar. And you shall make holy garments for glory and beauty. And so these garments are to set them apart as priests, and there are several different parts of this garment. The first one he talks about is an ephod, and try to figure, okay, what is this? Well, it's something that covers most of your chest and most of your back, and it's to me made of blue, or gold, blue, purple, and scarlet thread, fine woven linen, artistically worked. As God instructs them to take your finest art, finest seamstresses, your finest workmanship. It is to be intricately woven band of the ephod, which is on it, will be the same workmanship and made of gold, silver, and blue and purple. And then to take the 2 onyx stones, verse 9, take 2 onyx stones and engrave on them the names of the sons of Israel, 6 on one and 6 on the other, so that these stones are one on either kind of the shoulder of the priest, so that the 12 tribes of Israel are recognized and brought to the temple and to the altar each and every time that way. To make settings of gold with gold chains, and then the breastplate, and the breastplate, I think of something that's going to really cover your whole, but it's about 16 inches square if you do some digging and looking. I think it was 16 or 12, but the square says 9 inches on each side in here. And so a span was the length from the tip of your finger to the tip of your thumb. But that was the breastplate, and the breastplate then, it was to have a diamond and all these different jewels on them, and to make a chain on the breastplate. And it says in verse 29, Aaron will bear the names of the sons of Israel on the breastplate of judgment over his heart when he goes into the holy place. So this breastplate, again, is this reminder of the 12 tribes of Israel over his heart. And, the heart is your place of love and grace, and it's, where you keep your most important things. You treasure them in your heart, And so the breastplate is, to be worn over the heart. And it says, as a memorial before the Lord continually. And then this Urim and Thummim that talks about, I remember there were some mysterious stones. They don't really know what they are, but it was reference to some stones that would be in there, and they represented something. But I mean, it's very unclear, in so many different ways what they really signify. But it was something that God said, do this, and so they did. Verse 31, then, it talks about the other priestly garments of the, the robe of the ephod. So you've got the ephod on, and then you got this breastplate, and then you got a robe on, and then it talks about having some trousers over toward the end of the linen trousers, starting in verse 42, so that it covers their nakedness. That as they come to God, they are covered, so they're not. What does it say? So they don't incur iniquity. They don't sin in front of God in so many different ways that way. But there's one thing in verse 36. It says, "You shall make a plate of pure gold, and engrave on it like the engraving of a signet, holiness to the Lord." And so I think about this. One of these that they're putting on. I think about it sometimes as we'll wear a cross, signifying Jesus on the cross and our love for God and God's love for us that way. But so it's, again, God is very detailed in his specifics and in his requirements for the way the priests dress. And it talks about, the hats and everything. And I think about, pictures you see of as the Roman Catholics gather, and the Pope and all of these cardinals and everything. They've got these, and so here we have this biblical basis for that, and sometimes you think and you wonder, oh boy, that's a lot of pomp and showmanship, but it's not. It's because this is what a God has said for his priests should be. So have a very blessed day today again.